The popularity of Korean products and content continues to rise in Russia despite the geopolitical tensions amid the latter's war in Ukraine. We have details on this edition of Issues and Insiders. Hello and welcome to Issues and Insiders for this Friday, September 6th here in South Korea. I'm Min Sunhee. Today, we touch upon ties between South Korea and Russia amid broader geopolitical tensions. For more on this, I have Ilya Belyakov, a TV personality initially from Russia here in the country. Ilya, it's a pleasure, and you were saying that you've been here for 23 years.
Yes, I first came to Korea in 2003. So it's almost 23 years, 22 years, yeah.
Right, and to clarify, you are now a Korean.
Yes, I'm a Korean citizen.
Right. I also have Kwon Soa with us, so welcome back.
Hello, Sunny, and to clarify, I'm German.
Right. All right then, Ilya, let's begin with your thoughts regarding South Korea's ties with Russia amid the armed conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, it's definitely deteriorated a lot since the beginning of the war, and it's been proclaimed that the South Korean government will impose more sanctions on Russian economy since a couple of weeks ago. That's only obvious because South Korea in the group of countries who are doing all these sanctions and anti-Russian, would I say so? All those deeds. But I don't think that the relations deteriorated to the point that we are on a breach of the new Cold War or anything like that. We do have less connections since than we had to, like before coronavirus or the war, but we still have a lot of connections, usually on the lower level, on the usual people level. A lot of people from Korea go to Russia for tourism purposes, or students, for example. A lot of Russian students come to Korea to learn Korean language and learn more about Hallyu, Korean wave, or whatsoever. So it's not that completely shut down.
Right. And staying with that, Ilya, what can you tell us about the impact of geopolitical tensions on perhaps the business environment for Korean companies in Russia?
Well, it really depends on what kind of business we are talking about here. If we are talking about the huge corporations, the ones that are representing Korean market and are in Russia right now, they do have losses. They are unable to conduct their business as usual right now due to those sanctions and due to the restrictions on the financial currencies between the countries. But if we are talking about the so-called smaller businesses, which deal mostly with cosmetics or any business or anything related to K-pop, K-drama or whatever, they're actually doing very well.
Right, and before we delve into that, for the sake of comparison, so do tell us a bit about the trade ties between South Korea and Russia prior to and after Russia's attack in February 2022.
Well, since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, trade between South Korea and Russia has significantly declined. Now, Russian daily Izvestia cited the Russian embassy to South Korea late last month, saying a plunge by more than 30% of trade volume was recorded this year. So if we take a look at the figures from January to July this year, exports from Russia to South Korea stood at $3.79 billion US, down 35% from the same period last year, while imports from South Korea came at $2.84 billion, an on-year drop by 32%. So all in all, trade volume was down 34% in the first 7 months of the year. And the decline is already evident in the trade figures last year. According to the Korea International Trade Association, trade volume between South Korea and Russia amounted to around $15 billion US in 2023, down from $21.1 billion the previous year and $27.3 billion in 2021, so before Russia's attack in early 2022. Now, Russia was South Korea's 10th largest export partner in 2021, and South Korea ranked 5th among Russia's export partners. The Izvestia quoted the Russian embassy to Seoul as saying Western sanctions against Moscow that South Korea has joined have a negative impact on bilateral trade. And Seoul, in particular, was a major importer of Russia's natural gas, so LNG. And those imports from Russia fell 28.6% last year from the year before. And it's not only the sanctions, but also the closer ties between Russia and North Korea in recent months that is also probably contributing to the decline in trade and also other factors.
Right, and against that backdrop, so interestingly enough, though, there are a number of Korean export products that are have soared in recent times over in Russia, right?
Right. A recent report by Russia's newspaper Kommersant noted the skyrocketing sales of Korean ice cream in Russia over the past year. Despite the overall drop in trade between the two nations and growing geopolitical tensions, the popularity of Korean culture does not seem to be showing signs of slowing down. So why am I talking about K-culture after mentioning ice cream? Because it's K-pop and K-dramas that have led to the interest in Korean food products, beauty items, and so forth. So going into the specifics of Korean ice cream brands, Lotte's Watermelon Bar and Screw Bar and Bingul's Melona, some of the classics here, made it big, with Moscow's major supermarkets even dedicating exclusive freezers for K ice cream. According to Russia's media, a whopping 90% surge in ice cream retail sales was posted from July last year to July this year, this in terms of Korean ice cream, and this compares to a 27.3% increase in total ice cream sales in Russia over the same period. And that's not all. According to the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency, or KOTRA, Korean instant noodles, beverages, and confectionery are continuously receiving love from the Russians. 팔도's 도시락 ramen is a good example. Since its entrance into the Russian market in 1991, it has become the most popular instant noodle brand in Russia. It makes up around 60% of the country's instant noodle market and has still been on the grow in the past years, even during the economic woes amid the pandemic. Now, Lotte Chilseong's Milkies, a fizzy and milky beverage, is also super popular in Russia, currently available in 11 different flavors, including melon, grape, strawberry, lemon, and banana. And Sunny, have you actually heard of these before? Because I never tasted those in Korea.
Exactly.
They are unavailable here in Korea, actually. And also, we cannot leave out Orion's Choco Pie. That is not only a national snack here in Korea, but also a national snack in Russia, and that even had record-breaking sales posted even after the war in Ukraine. Russia now boasts 14 different choco pie flavors, including caramel, apple, cinnamon, raspberry, cherry, and even poppy.
Right, lucky Russia. It has more selection than we do here in Korea. And that being said, Ilya, how do you care to explain the popularity of K-snacks, ice cream, and noodles in Russia?
Well, there are different aspects to that popularity, actually. One is definitely being the popularity of the K-wave, the K-dramas, K-pop, and everything related to that. Definitely that drives the selling of the everything related to Korea, not just the products like ice cream, but everything related like electronic goods, anything, cars, whatever. Another point of that I should definitely want to mention is that partly we are seeing the increase in the sellings of the Korean products because the Western brands have withdrew from Russian market after the 2022. So the Russian market is much less saturated right now. It's much more filled with Chinese, Korean, and other brands from the countries that are not strict on the joining the sanctions against the Russian market, and that's partly explained by the so much variety of the Korean ice creams and products in Russian markets.
Right, I see. And so what do surveys show us about the current popularity or the spread, of course, of Hallyu in Russia that Ilya mentioned earlier?
Right, as we both have been already hinting, Hallyu does not appear to have been affected that much by the geopolitical tensions. But maybe with no war, there might have been even more room for expansion of the K-wave within Russia. The Korea Creative Content Agency released a report earlier this year on Hallyu in Russia after Putin's attack of Ukraine, in which it concluded that the Korean wave was likely to remain influential in Russia in 2022 and and 2023 despite the war. For one, because Russia already has a huge K-culture fan base and it is still growing. Following the penetration of the K-wave in Russia in the late 2000s, starting with K-dramas and K-music and gradually other aspects of K-culture like K-food, K-games and K-fashion, Russia had 5.69 million Hallyu fans by 2021, the largest in Europe, although we have to consider the big population in Russia as well. Now, that figure jumped by almost 40% on year to 7.9 million fans by the end of 2022. And the report notes, based on other factors, this figure may be even higher. Now, one of the most important factors that demonstrate the current state of the Korean wave in a country is the growing interest in the country and the desire to learn about the country's culture. And over the past 3 years, Russian students have become 5 times more likely to choose South Korea for their higher education. In addition, Korean was one of the most popular languages in 2023, with sales of Korean language textbooks and tutorials having increased by 32% on year in April 2023. In the same year, South Korea became one of the most popular travel destinations among the Russian upper middle class, and that excluding the K-pop or other K-fandom. Now, Kotra, meanwhile, looked into the expansion of the Korean restaurant market in Russia, which places like Kimchi to go and Chico leading the trend, especially on the back of the MZ generation's growing interest in K-food, and that, of course, thanks to the influence of K-culture. And Ilya, have you actually heard of those, Chico and Kimchi to go?
I haven't heard about those particular ones, but I do have now one of my friend who lives in not so big Russian town city. He opened a Korean restaurant and he's hugely successful right now.
Right, good to know. Ilya, how do you explain the popularity of K-entertainment in Russia?
Well, there are certainly different reasons, and K-pop being definitely one of them. If you look at the K-fandom, you will see that ARMY probably have one of the largest fan base in Russia. And if we are talking about the groups like Blackpink and so ever, they have a huge presence in Russian media field. We do have a lot of presence of Korean content in Russian TV, for example. Practically all Russians watched Parasite or Squid Games. It's been a huge thing in Russian as well. So all of that combined, we see a growing interest towards the K content and K food.
Do you suppose it's because of the universal themes shared within the K-dramas and movies?
I do. Like, because of this trying to get the different points of view, like Russians not only look at the European or American market to get the content right now. You can say that American content is not that interesting to the Russians anymore because it's not been very fascinating, should I say, very interesting. Not so many good options we are seeing coming out of American market recently. So Russians naturally, they pivot to the Asia and specifically to Korea is a rising thing. If you look at the streaming services, you will see that Korean products are getting into top 10 and even top 5. And if you like browsing through the history and you will see the new dramas and new movies in top 5, you naturally want to see them. And that's how you get introduced to this new culture.
Right. And yet, aside from access to Korean movies, music, and drama, a survey last year of the presence of Hallyu overseas shows that Russians' access to a broader Korean cultural interests remains quite challenging.
Because of the some current technical difficulties, I guess. For example, right now, due to some political reasons, we don't have direct flights to Russia. And if Korean travels to Russia or backwards, Russian travel to South Korea, we need to go through some third countries. That's definitely been one of the constraints as well. But despite of that, If you look at the Russian YouTube, for example, and Russian blogs, you will see that practically all of the top Russian travel bloggers have been in South Korea and did a lot of content about like traveling around Seoul and going to specific places and specific restaurants and doing specific theme trips like at K-pop theme, whatever, like nature theme, climbing the mountains theme, and so on and so forth. And definitely, as everywhere in the world, YouTube is huge in Russia as well. So everyone looks those videos and want to come to Korea.
Right, and speaking about wanting to come to Korea, and of course Koreans wanting to visit Russia, it's quite clear that the construction of favorable ties between any two countries depends on the cessation of actual fighting, of course. That being said, Soa, what are the prospects regarding the war between Russia and Ukraine as we speak?
Well, that is a very difficult question and that not even experts are certain about. There are various scenarios on how this war could end. So let me rather first focus on the latest situation and what we can make out of that. Now, Russia in recent days has been intensifying its aerial attacks in Ukraine's western city of Lviv. 7 people were killed on Wednesday local time. That came just a day after Russia's deadliest single bombardment this year in Ukraine's central city of Poltava that left more than 50 people dead and over 200 injured. Ballistic missiles hit a military academy as well as a nearby hospital. Now, meanwhile, this week, the Kremlin announced it is making adjustments to its nuclear doctrine, arguing the U.S. and its Western allies were threatening Moscow by escalating the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in the meantime, is going through a major government reshuffle, the biggest since Russia's invasion. Parliament voted to appoint 9 new ministers. Ukraine's incursion into the Russian province of Kursk was assessed as a significant change of course, and even had media report Ukraine having its upper hand in the war now. But with Russia's own continued advancement into Ukraine's territory, its intensified strikes, and potential change in its nuclear doctrine, many uncertainties and concerns of more casualties remain. So what we may say on the prospects of the war right now is that a new phase may have just begun or is about to begin, but where it will lead to, we don't know.
Right, nobody knows for now. Ilya, what are your suggestions then, very generally speaking, to improve bilateral ties between Russia and South Korea amid, of course, these geopolitical differences?
Well, I think the place for maneuver for political leaders is quite constrained right now. There is not much thing they could probably do from either side. But what we can do to improve the relations between the country is we can support in any way any connections that we have right now, if we are talking about the regular soft power. We're talking about the dramas, we're talking about TV, we're talking about exchange of students, and so on and so forth. That's probably the best thing we can do right now, not to lose everything that we have achieved for the past 30 years since we have the diplomatic relationships established. We don't know how and when the war in Ukraine will end, but we have to be prepared for that, to start again and start from the very beginning, from the very basics, to create the layer of people who are pro-Korean in Russia and pro-Russian in Korea.
Right. Aside from being a TV personality here in the country, Ilya, you are also a member of the faculty at Suwon University,
right,
where you teach students. Do you suppose, you spoke about student exchanges serving to improve ties between the two countries. Do you see a number of students seeking to study in Russia from Korea?
Not recently, no. We do had plunges in the students who are interested to learn Russian language and everything related to Russia. Firstly, due to coronavirus, because we had less connections and less relations to that and less possibilities to actually go to Russia. Then, due to war, we had the huge plunge in interest. But I do think it's very temporarily. It's not it's not forever. We will have a lot of rise in Russian-related, because Russia is it really depends on North Korea and the relations between Russia and North Korea. But if we look at the future, not the closest one, not like 1 year or 2 years, but like 20 years, 50 years. If we look at the future like that, you will see that Russia will play a very important and very crucial role in everything that happens on Korean Peninsula. And for that, we do need to be prepared. We need specialists, we need linguists, we need translators, we need interpreters who understand the culture and can actually communicate with that side to increase the possibility of no war on Korean Peninsula, I would say.
Right, hence academic and scholastic exchanges between the two countries will serve to be very important in the future.
Yes.
All right, Ilya, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today.
Thank you.
And Soa, thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you, Sunny.
Right, well, that brings us to the end of this week's editions of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.